The penthouse lights glittered like diamonds against the storm-ravaged Manhattan skyline as billionaire tech mogul Jonathan Pierce raised his champagne glass to address the city's elite. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his 47th-floor penthouse, but inside, New York's most powerful figures celebrated his latest venture announcement. Little did Jonathan know that in exactly 3 minutes, his life would hang by a thread, and the woman quietly polishing silver in the shadows would become his unlikely savior. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan's voice boomed across the marble-floored great room. Tonight marks not just another acquisition, but a revolution in artificial intelligence that will. In the service hallway just beyond the kitchen, Anna Richardson checked her watch for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Something felt wrong. The 23-year-old had only been working as a maid in the Pierce mansion for 2 weeks, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, "When the hair on your arm stands up, baby girl, you listen to what the world's trying to tell you." Anna's dark skin glistened with nervous perspiration as she gripped her polishing cloth tighter. The guests hung on Jonathan's every word. At 35, he'd built his empire from nothing, a kid from Detroit who'd coded his way to billions. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes commanded attention, but tonight, those same eyes would soon flutter closed in a fight for survival. But what happened next shocked everyone in that room. As Jonathan gestured toward his presentation screen, a shadow moved along the crown molding above. A black spider, its body no larger than a quarter but carrying venom potent enough to kill, descended on an invisible thread. The creature's movements were deliberate, almost predatory, as it navigated the ornate ceiling fixtures. Anna felt her pulse quicken. Something was pulling her toward the main room, an instinct she couldn't explain. She'd grown up in rural Mississippi, where her grandmother had taught her to read signs others missed, the way animals behaved before storms, the subtle changes in air pressure that preceded danger. Tonight, every nerve in her body screamed warning. The spider dropped silently onto Jonathan's shoulder as he turned to face his audience. The guests, mesmerized by his presentation about neural networks and machine learning, noticed nothing. Wall Street titans, tech innovators, and Manhattan socialites sipped their champagne, oblivious to the drama unfolding before their eyes. This technology will transform how we interact with artificial intelligence, Jonathan continued, his voice strong and confident. By next quarter, we'll have eliminated the gap between human intuition and machine precision. The spider crept along his collar, its 8 legs moving with deadly purpose. Anna burst through the service door into the main room, her instincts overriding protocol. Several guests turned to stare at the young black woman who dared interrupt their exclusive gathering. But Anna's eyes were fixed on Jonathan, on the dark creature now positioned at the base of his neck. "Mr. Pierce," she called out, but her voice was lost in the murmur of conversation and clinking glasses. The spider struck. Jonathan's hand flew to his neck as the venomous fangs pierced his skin. His champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as his knees buckled. The room erupted in chaos, women screamed, men shouted for help, and champagne flutes crashed to the ground in a symphony of breaking crystal. "Call 911, someone yelled. "Is he having a heart attack? Give him space." But Anna was already moving. She'd seen this before, not in Manhattan penthouses, but in the backwoods of Mississippi where deadly spiders were a constant threat. Her grandmother's words rang clear, "First 60 seconds are everything, child. You hesitate, they die." She dropped to her knees beside Jonathan's convulsing body. His face was already turning pale, sweat beading on his forehead as the neurotoxin began its deadly work. Without hesitation, Anna tilted his head back and located the bite mark, 2 tiny puncture wounds already swelling red. "What are you doing?" Dr. Patricia Wen, a renowned cardiologist and one of the guests, pushed through the crowd. "Step away from him immediately." But Anna ignored her. This decision would change everything between them forever. She pressed her lips to Jonathan's neck and began drawing the venom from his bloodstream, spitting the poisonous mixture onto the marble floor. Once, twice, 3 times she repeated the process, her grandmother's survival techniques taking over. Jonathan's eyes found hers in that moment, confused, grateful, desperate. here was this woman he barely knew, literally saving his life with an intimacy that transcended their employer-employee relationship. "The paramedics are 5 minutes out," someone shouted from across the room. Anna continued her work, ignoring the shocked stares and whispered comments from the crowd. She could taste the metallic bitterness of the venom mixed with blood, but she didn't stop. Jonathan's breathing was becoming more labored, his pulse weak but steady under her fingertips. "Who is she?" she heard someone whisper. "Just the help," another voice replied dismissively. But Jonathan's grip tightened on Anna's wrist as consciousness began to slip away from him. In his eyes, she saw something that would haunt her for weeks to come, not just gratitude, but recognition. As if he was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. The spider's lifeless body lay crushed beneath someone's shoe, but questions were already forming in Anna's mind. Black widows weren't native to Manhattan penthouses. They didn't accidentally wander into climate-controlled luxury buildings 47 floors above street level. As the paramedics burst through the penthouse doors and took over Jonathan's care, Anna stepped back into the shadows where she belonged. But the real shock was still coming, because Detective Marcus Hall was already on his way up, and he had questions that would turn her world upside down. The penthouse erupts in chaos as Jonathan Pierce crashes to the marble floor, his body convulsing from the spider's venom. Wealthy guests scream and stumble backward, their champagne glasses shattering across the floor. In the midst of this pandemonium, Anna Richardson doesn't hesitate for even a second. "Everyone back up. Give him space." Anna shouts, her Mississippi accent cutting through the panic like a blade. She drops to her knees beside Jonathan, her hands trembling but her mind crystal clear. The billionaire's face is already turning pale, dark veins spreading from the bite mark on his neck. Mrs. Whitmore, Jonathan's longtime housekeeper, gasps in horror. "Anna, what are you doing? We need to wait for the paramedics." But Anna isn't listening. Something deep within her takes over, memories flooding back of humid summer evenings in rural Mississippi. She can almost hear her grandmother's weathered voice, "Child, when death comes knockin', you don't wait for nobody. You fight with everything you got." Anna leans down and places her mouth directly over the puncture wounds on Jonathan's neck. The crowd recoils in disgust and shock as she begins sucking the venom from his bloodstream, spitting the poisonous mixture onto the floor beside her. Her grandmother had taught her this technique when she was just 12, after Anna's younger brother had been bitten by a copperhead behind their trailer. "That's disgusting," someone from the crowd yells. "She's going to make it worse." Jonathan's eyes flutter open briefly, meeting Anna's intense gaze. For a moment, time seems suspended between them. She continues the process, alternating between sucking and spitting, her lips stained with his blood. The veins in his neck begin to fade from black to purple, then back to their normal color. "Keep breathing, Mr. Pierce," Anna whispers between treatments. "You're stronger than this poison, you hear me? You didn't build an empire just to be taken down by some spider." The sirens finally pierce through the night air, growing closer with each second. Anna continues her work, completely focused, as if the 60 panicked guests around her don't exist. She's transported back to that sweltering Mississippi evening, her grandmother's calloused hands guiding hers as they saved her brother's life in their tiny kitchen. Anna learned this from watching nature documentaries. She remembers her grandmother saying, "Sometimes the old ways are the only ways that matter." Jonathan's breathing steadies, his color slowly returning. Anna sits back on her heels, wiping the blood from her mouth with the back of her hand. The room has fallen eerily quiet except for the approaching ambulance sirens. "How did you know what to do?" Mrs. Whitmore asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Anna's eyes dart nervously around the crowd of staring faces. She's always been careful about revealing too much of her past, but tonight changed everything. "My grandmother taught me. We didn't always have hospitals nearby where I grew up. But here's what nobody in that room knows yet. Anna had seen that exact species of spider before, just 3 days earlier, in a terrarium in the mansion's basement storage room. A room that should have been empty." The paramedics burst through the penthouse doors, their equipment cases clattering against the marble. "What happened here?" Spider bite to the neck, Anna reports immediately, her voice steady and professional. Venom extracted manually approximately 4 minutes ago. Patient was unconscious for roughly 2 minutes but is now responsive. The lead paramedic looks at Anna with surprise. You extracted the venom yourself? That actually might have saved his life. As they load Jonathan onto the stretcher, he manages to grab Anna's wrist weakly. Thank you, he whispers, his eyes searching hers for something he can't quite name. The crowd begins to disperse, guests murmuring among themselves about the dramatic turn of events. But as Anna watches the ambulance disappear into the rainy New York night, a chill runs down her spine that has nothing to do with the weather. Heavy footsteps echo across the marble floor behind her. She turns to see a tall, imposing figure in a dark coat approaching through the crowd. His badge catches the light from the chandeliers above. Miss Richardson? His voice is deep, authoritative. I'm Detective Marcus Hall, NYPD. I'm going to need to ask you some questions about what happened here tonight. Anna's heart pounds as she realizes this nightmare is just beginning. Because Detective Hall's eyes aren't filled with gratitude, they're filled with suspicion. The sterile hospital lights cast harsh shadows across Jonathan's pale face as he lay motionless in the intensive care unit. Machines beeped rhythmically around him, monitoring every heartbeat, every breath. Anna sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside his bed, her hands trembling slightly as she watched his chest rise and fall. Miss Richardson? Detective Hall's gravelly voice cut through the silence like a blade. Anna turned to see his imposing figure filling the doorway, his weathered face showing no warmth. We need to talk. Anna's stomach dropped. She'd been dreading this moment since the ambulance arrived at the penthouse. Of course, Detective. Hall pulled up another chair, his eyes never leaving her face. Funny thing about that spider bite last night. Real convenient how you knew exactly what to do. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Most people would have called 911 first, but you went straight for his neck like you'd done it before. My grandmother taught me. Yeah, I heard about Grandma down in Mississippi. Hall flipped open his notepad. But here's what's interesting, that particular spider? Brazilian wandering spider. Not exactly native to Manhattan penthouses. Someone had to bring it there. Anna's blood ran cold. The way he said it made her sound guilty of something she couldn't even comprehend. You think Detective, I saved his life. Or maybe you caused the problem to make yourself look like the hero. Hall's accusation hung in the air like poison. Before Anna could respond, Jonathan stirred in his bed, his eyes fluttering open. Anna? His voice came out as barely a whisper. She rushed to his side, relief flooding through her. I'm here, Mr. Pierce. You're going to be okay. Jonathan's eyes focused on Detective Hall with difficulty. What's he doing here? Just routine questions, Mr. Pierce, Hall said, standing up. Someone tried to kill you last night. We need to figure out who. As Jonathan drifted back to sleep, Anna felt the weight of suspicion crushing down on her. The next few days blurred together, hospital visits, police questioning, and worst of all, the media circus that had erupted outside the mansion. Reporters shouted questions at her every time she tried to leave. Did you know about the spider? What's your relationship with Mr. Pierce? Are you a hero or a suspect? But what really kept her awake at night wasn't the cameras or the detective's accusations, it was the look in Claudia Lopez's eyes when she passed her in the mansion's hallway. The other maid had worked there for 3 years, and Anna could feel her resentment like a physical presence. Lucky you were in the right place at the right time, Claudia had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Almost like you were expecting something to happen. Now, as Anna walked through the mansion's grand foyer, she noticed how the other staff members avoided her gaze. The cook, the gardener, even the security guards, they all whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. She was becoming a pariah in the place she'd hoped to call home. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister back in Mississippi. Mama's been watching the news. She says come home before this gets worse. Maybe that was the smart thing to do. Pack her bags, disappear back to the quiet life she'd known before. But something deep inside her rebelled against the idea of running away like a guilty person. That evening, as Anna was cleaning the library where the gala had taken place, she heard Detective Hall's voice echoing from the main hallway. "Case closed," he was saying into his phone. "Spider must have been hiding in one of those exotic flower arrangements. Freak accident." Anna felt a wave of relief wash over her until she noticed something glinting on the floor behind one of the bookshelves. She knelt down and picked up a small glass vial, still containing a few drops of clear liquid. Her heart started racing as she realized what she was holding. The next morning brought new horror. Anna arrived at the mansion to find ambulances and police cars filling the circular driveway. Mrs. Henderson, the head housekeeper, was being wheeled out on a stretcher, her face gray and her breathing labored. "Another spider bite," one of the paramedics was saying. "Same type as the other night." Detective Hall stood near the entrance, his face grim as he barked orders. When he saw Anna approaching, his expression darkened. Well, our hero returns to the scene. "What happened to Mrs. Henderson?" Anna's voice cracked with genuine concern. "Funny you should ask." Hall stepped closer. "She was found in the pantry this morning, same symptoms as your boss. But this time, there was no miracle maid around to save the day." Anna felt the walls closing in around her. 2 incidents in less than a week, it couldn't be a coincidence. Someone was deliberately targeting people in this house, and she was starting to look like the common denominator. That afternoon, as Anna was gathering her courage to potentially resign and leave New York forever, she encountered Claudia in the servants' quarters. The other woman was packing boxes with unusual haste. "Leaving so soon?" Anna asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Claudia froze, her hands stilling on a framed photograph she was wrapping. "Family emergency," she said without turning around. But Anna had caught a glimpse of what Claudia was so carefully packing away, and her blood turned to ice. It was a photograph of Claudia shaking hands with Marcus Webb, CEO of Titan Industries, Jonathan's biggest rival in the tech world. "That's an interesting family photo," Anna said quietly. Claudia spun around, her mask of politeness finally slipping away to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl from Mississippi." The confrontation Anna had been dreading was finally here, and she realized that everything, the spider, the investigation, even her own presence in this house, might be part of something much bigger and more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. The elevator doors sealed shut with an ominous thud, trapping Anna and Jonathan 40 floors above the bustling Manhattan streets. What had started as a routine trip to the penthouse conference room had suddenly become their worst nightmare. "Something's wrong," Jonathan muttered, jabbing repeatedly at the button panel. The numbers weren't lighting up, and an eerie silence filled the cramped space. "The emergency button isn't working either." Anna's instincts kicked in immediately. She pressed her ear against the door, listening intently to the mechanical sounds beyond. "Mr. Pierce, I think someone's tampered with this elevator. The cables sound different." "What do you mean different?" Jonathan's voice carried a tremor he couldn't hide. After everything they'd been through, the spider bite, the investigation, the mounting threats against his company, being trapped felt like more than just bad luck. "Back home, my uncle worked maintenance for the county building," Anna explained, her hands methodically checking every surface of the elevator car. "He taught me to recognize when machinery's been sabotaged." She paused, meeting his eyes with growing concern. "Mr. Pierce, I need you to know something. Earlier today, I saw Claudia near the maintenance room on the basement level." Jonathan's expression hardened. "Claudia? The other maid? What was she doing down there?" "That's what I've been trying to figure out." Anna's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I followed her, and she was talking to someone on the phone. She kept saying the conference has to be stopped and he can't announce the project." The elevator suddenly lurched downward, causing both of them to grab the handrails. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie shadows across their faces. Jonathan's breathing became labored, panic setting in as he realized the gravity of their situation. Anna, I need to tell you something too, he said, his usual commanding presence cracking under pressure. The project I'm announcing tomorrow, it's worth $3 billion. If my competitors knew the details, they'd do anything to stop it. Even murder? Anna asked, though she already knew the answer. Another violent shake rattled the elevator, and this time they could hear the cables groaning ominously above them. Anna quickly assessed their options, her mind racing through every survival technique her grandmother had ever taught her. Mr. Pierce, I need you to listen carefully, she said with remarkable calm. We have maybe 10 minutes before these cables give out completely. But there's something else you should know about me, something I never told the detective or anyone else. Jonathan turned to face her fully, recognizing the weight in her voice. Despite their desperate circumstances, he found himself hanging on her every word. Before I came to New York, I wasn't just a maid in Mississippi, Anna continued. I worked search and rescue operations during hurricane seasons. I've gotten people out of worse situations than this. She pointed upward toward the emergency hatch in the ceiling. But I need you to trust me completely. No questions, no hesitation. Can you do that? After what you did with the spider bite, I'd trust you with my life, Jonathan replied without missing a beat. Just then, Anna's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. Mr. Pierce, we have a bigger problem than I thought. What is it? She showed him the message, stay in the elevator if you want to live. The conference room is rigged to explode when you arrive. You have 1 hour to transfer the project files, or Richardson pays the price. A friend. Jonathan stared at the cryptic message, his mind reeling. Someone's trying to save us, but who? And how do they know about you? The elevator shuddered again, more violently this time. Anna looked up at the emergency hatch with newfound determination, but her expression carried a shadow of fear that hadn't been there moments before. Mr. Pierce, she said quietly, I think my past just caught up with both of us, and we're about to discover that this was never just about your business rivals. She paused, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the emergency ladder. What if the spider bite wasn't the beginning of this story, but the end of another one I thought I'd left behind in Mississippi? In the suffocating darkness of the sabotaged elevator, Anna's grandmother's voice echoes through her mind like a prayer. When death comes calling, child, you meet it with steady hands and a clear heart. The emergency lights flicker weakly as Jonathan struggles to breathe, his face pale and clammy from what appears to be delayed venom effects spreading through his system. Stay with me, Mr. Pierce, Anna whispers, her hands finding the pulse points on his neck with practiced precision. The elevator shudders ominously between floors, but her focus remains laser-sharp. She recognizes the symptoms immediately, secondary toxin reaction, something her grandmother warned her about when they'd encountered coral snakes in the Mississippi bayou. I can't breathe, Jonathan gasps, his empire and billions meaningless in this metal coffin suspended 40 floors above the city. Anna positions herself behind him, supporting his weight as she applies pressure to specific points along his spine. You're going to be fine. Trust me. Her voice carries the same quiet authority that saved his life the first time, but now Jonathan truly hears it, not as his employee, but as his equal, his savior, his unexpected guardian angel. Through the elevator's emergency phone, they hear Detective Hall coordinating the rescue effort. We've got Claudia Lopez in custody, his voice crackles through the static. She confessed to releasing the spider and sabotaging the elevator. Apparently, your competitor offered her $50,000 to eliminate you before tomorrow's product launch. Jonathan's eyes widen as the pieces fall into place. Claudia, she had access to everything. My schedule, my security codes. He looks at Anna with newfound understanding. But you saved me. Twice now. 3 times, Anna corrects gently, continuing her pressure point therapy. That coffee you almost drank this morning? I switched it out. Something didn't smell right. The revelation hits Jonathan like lightning. This woman, whom he'd barely acknowledged for months, had been protecting him while everyone else saw only his money and power. Anna, His voice breaks. I never even asked about your family, your dreams. I treated you like furniture. You treated me like most people treat the help, she replies without bitterness. But people can change. The elevator lurches as rescue crews work to stabilize it. Anna maintains her position, keeping Jonathan's breathing steady through techniques passed down through generations of her family. In the dim light, she shares her story, growing up in rural Mississippi, learning healing arts from her great-grandmother, coming to New York not just for work, but to prove she was more than her circumstances. After my grandmother died, Anna explains, I promised myself I'd use everything she taught me to help people, no matter who they were or how they treated me. She always said, kindness plants seeds in the hardest soil. Jonathan feels something shifting inside him, like ice melting after the longest winter. When we get out of here, things are going to be different. Not just between us, but everything. The rescue finally comes, firefighters cutting through the elevator roof as paramedics rush both of them to safety. As they're wheeled into the hospital, Jonathan grabs Anna's hand. Partner, he says simply. Partner? Anna raises an eyebrow. My new security director position just opened up. Community outreach coordinator too. I'm thinking we need someone who understands people from all walks of life. His smile is genuine for the first time in years. Someone who sees threats others miss, who can bridge worlds I've forgotten exist. 6 months later, Jonathan's keynote speech at the Global Philanthropy Summit draws a standing ovation. But the real applause comes when he introduces Anna Richardson, now Vice President of Community Relations for Pierce Technologies, whose innovative programs connect inner-city kids with technology education and rural communities with healthcare access. Anna didn't just save my life, Jonathan tells the audience. She saved my soul. She reminded me that success without service is just expensive loneliness. In the front row, Anna's family, her mother, her 3 siblings, her nephew she's putting through MIT, beam with pride. Detective Hall, who received a commendation for solving the case, nods approvingly from his seat. As the applause dies down, Jonathan delivers his final message. Every day, we encounter people whose worth we underestimate because they don't wear expensive suits or speak with polished accents. But sometimes, those are exactly the people heaven sends to save us, if we're humble enough to let them. Anna steps to the microphone, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. Grandmama always said, what goes around comes around, but kindness comes around faster. Mr. Pierce gave me a chance to show what I could do. Now we're giving that same chance to thousands of others. The camera captures their handshake, but the real magic is in their eyes, mutual respect between 2 people who found each other across the vast divide of American society, proving that redemption and second chances are always possible when we choose to see each other's humanity. What stories of unexpected heroism and second chances have shaped your life? Share them in the comments below, because sometimes the most powerful transformations happen when we least expect them.